Just finished listening to Mauricio Pochettino's press conference. The Chelsea boss was really, really unclear on team news generally. He spoke about Nkunku and Lavia in the same, question, and said that they need to be assessed. He mentioned that Chelsea obviously have another training session on Saturday a few times because they play on Sunday, and he was kind of pressed on it. He said Lavia might be the more difficult player to have fit for Sunday. He was also asked about team news generally just before he was asked about the two players, and he said he didn't really believe that they could recover players, but then said it could be possible too. So yeah, really, really unclear. From a fantasy perspective, the advice on Nkunku kind of remains the same as last week. Like Pochettino spoke last week about having to ease Nkunku back in whenever he was ready to be part of a matchday squad and that kind of thing. So, you obviously wouldn't invest in him, and I reckon even when he is fit to start that he's going to take Jackson's place as opposed to taking Palmer's place, or possibly even Conor Gallagher's place in the number 10 role. I know Palmer can play centrally instead of on the wing and stuff like that, but yeah, I think Palmer, once he's fit, is really good for minutes. And the other thing that people are wondering then is, will Nkunku take penalties off Palmer? The answer is that nobody knows, but the evidence suggests that Palmer will keep them for the time being. I think it's really only going to be a conversation if Palmer misses a penalty. And obviously that's really dependent on when or if that even happens, when it happens, how fit Nkunku is, how many minutes he's going to be playing in the team. So yeah, look, it'll be interesting to see the Chelsea squad on Sunday and whether or not Nkunku features, but he's definitely going to be eased back in. And yeah, I think if you're investing in Palmer, I don't think it's really an issue. Or if you own Palmer, yeah, it's not something I'd be sweating for the time being. So yeah, Nkunku could make the squad. Lavia sounds really unlikely to feature. Malo Gusto is out. That's according to the Chelsea medical bulletin. Pochettino wasn't asked about Gusto, but yeah, the medical bulletin also was kind of hazy because it says that Lavia and Nkunku are in the reconditioning phase of their rehabilitation. Doesn't really tell you anything, and then Poch was unclear too. Both players were spotted in training on Friday morning. Not definitive whether they trained fully or they just did parts of team training. And again, Chelsea have another session tomorrow, as Pochettino is at pains to point out. So, yeah, that's the situation from his press conference. Reece James and Cucurella are both suspended, one match for each, so they'll be back in Game Week 15. And Poch was asked about James, mainly about the sending off last weekend, but he kind of said in the middle of that something that's pretty important for FPL, and his quote was, "James is far away from his best condition to play 90 minutes." So yeah, that was pointed out, I think, by me and many others, I'm sure, last week, that anyone investing in James kind of had to go in with their eyes open, that he's just not going to start 3 games in a row, 14 to 16. He's just not going to start 3 games in a row anytime soon. So same applies with the kind of Christmas crunch period. He's obviously getting his rest now in 14 because he's suspended. But he's still going to be a risky pick. I can see why you'd be tempted still, especially I suppose in 15 you nearly know that he's going to start in 15, but then after that it's going to be up in the air again. But yeah, he's not going to play 90 minutes. So that risk of a pre-60 sub is always there, and risk of benching is strong. So yeah, it's just if you've got Reece James on your radar, I'd be just fully aware that he's, not fully match fit. And even, from reading about the game and stuff, people seem to think that James didn't look fully on it. Now that's an eye test view, and it's always hard to quantify. But Poch's quotes on that are definitely interesting in relation to Reece James. And finally on Chelsea, Reece, that's Reece James, excuse me. Raheem Sterling is on 4 yellow cards. So one more booking up to and including Chelsea's 19th fixture, and Sterling will have a 1-match ban. So yeah, I think it's hard to suggest you'd invest in him when Palmer's there on penalties and miles cheaper anyway. But that's probably another mark against Sterling that he's just one booking away from a suspension.